have Paul Watson of Sea Shepherd. And Jana Wiggins is going to be coming up to introduce him. So let's please give her a round of applause. Also with Ocean Allies, who has come to our school in the past to certify us, and we are the first school in the nation to be Ocean Allies Ocean Friendly certified. That's really cool, everybody. She will be here later this year to talk about that and to teach us some things that we can do to be really ocean friendly at home. But today we are super excited to have this wonderful guest here, and I'm going to let Jana do the formal introduction. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So yes, I'm Jana Wiggins, and Sea Shepherd actually has chapters all over the world of volunteers, and Sea Shepherd is a volunteer movement. So our chapters take care of all sorts of things on the ground and on the oceans. And our chapter here in Florida goes from north of Orlando down to the Keys in helping people understand what's happening in our oceans and helping them join us to fight for the oceans. So I wanted to introduce Captain Paul Watson. We're going to fight the bio on him, and so I think you'll be pretty interested in his accomplishments. So Captain Paul Watson was the co-founder of Greenpeace Foundation in 1972. And founded Sea Shepherd Conservation Society in 1977. He wanted to actually do direct action to help save the planet and the oceans. The star of Whale Wars, the Ocean Warrior series on Animal Planet, and featured in the Academy Award-winning film The Cove, and in the documentaries Chasing the Thunder, Shark Water, Pirate Free Sea, The Edge of the World, and Eco Pirate. Captain Paul Watson is also the author of the books Ocean Warrior, Seal Wars, Earth Force, and Reward to Save the Whales. Captain Watson has led hundreds of marine conservation campaigns and today commands 14 anti-poaching vessels operating around the globe, tracking down and shutting down poaching operations, defending endangered species, and protecting threatened habitats of those species. Captain Paul Watson has received the Amazon Peace Prize, the Jules Verne Medal for Conservation, and was named one of the most 100 environmental heroes of the 20th century by Time magazine. Captain Paul Watson is a citizen of both the United States and Canada and was born in Toronto in 1950. So, without further ado, I introduce Captain Paul Watson. So we're going to play a couple of videos so you can see a little bit about what we do.
Gulf of California, the sea is teeming with life. However, these waters have become a death trap to the animals that live here due to the illegal nets. Sea Shepherd's Milagro campaign puts us in between poaching and the murder of marine wildlife, such as the world's most endangered marine mammal, the vaquita. For the last 3 years, Sea Shepherd have been an inconvenience. This year, we became a problem for poachers. We've pulled in more nets than ever, more than the other 3 campaigns combined. We really fought back and did the hard. Milagro 4 saw more retaliation than ever. Our drones being shot down, ships being shot at, Molotov cocktails thrown at us. And the reason for that is we are having such a big impact. As part of our partnership with Mexico, we now have posting authorities on board. This allows us to process nets more efficiently while improving security. We took all 3 cutters to the city of Cortez, each ship pulling more than 100 nets. That moment that we seen the net in the sonar, clear as anything on our screen, that was completely game-changing for us. We can pull 10 nets a day on a normal day. We're pulling in nets all day. It doesn't stop. Once we find a gill net, it's a race against time to get every single animal free. Once we take it out of the ocean, that animal is dying. We need to get it back in as quickly as we can.
We got a long line and a net at the same time. And this net also appears to be full of live totoaba.
Every now and again we get a net that is completely full of a live animal. Whenever we put lives back that would have otherwise been murdered, the feeling we get is something more than rewarding. It's something entirely different. We free animals and destroy nets. That is the essence of direct action, is the Milagro campaign. By being here, we are making a difference for numerous critically endangered species, as well as the vaquita. Without working with the local government, the help of local legal fishermen, and without our supporters, none of this would have been possible. We're going to continue coming here, and we're going to continue fighting this fight.
Now, most of you are aware that you live by the sea, but the fact is you live in the ocean. You are the ocean. Because our understanding of what the ocean is very much alienated from their reality. And that is that this is the planet ocean. It is water in continuous circulation. Sometimes it's in the sea, sometimes it's in ice, sometimes it's underground. Sometimes it's in the atmosphere in the clouds, and it's in the cells of every living plant and animal. So the water that is in your body right now was once in the sea, it was once locked up in ice, it was once in the clouds, and it was once underground. And that is water in continuous circulation. We are the ocean. And the ocean is the foundation of all life on this planet. And right now, the ocean is dying. And we have to do everything we can to prevent that. And to show you how fragile this is, just look at the smallest things in the ocean, phytoplankton, that is the plant plankton that lives in the ocean. Since 1950, there's been a 40% diminishment in phytoplankton population in the world's seas. And why is that? Because we have removed the nutrient base for phytoplankton. Primarily, that's nitrogen and iron. And where do those nutrients come from? Marine mammals, whales, seals, and also seabirds. One blue whale every day defecates into the ocean 3 tons of manure. That's a lot. And it's full of iron and it's full of nitrogen. And literally what they are doing is providing the fertilizer for the phytoplankton. The whales are the farmers of the ocean. And when you reduce whale populations, seabird populations, marine mammal populations, you reduce the nutrient base for phytoplankton. And if phytoplankton disappears, we all die. We do not live on this planet without phytoplankton. It is the foundation of life. It produces 70% of the oxygen in the air that we breathe. It's absolutely essential. For the most part, people are unaware of that. They don't see the connections. They don't understand that the ocean, a healthy ocean, is absolutely essential for a healthy planet. If you look at the planet, our planet Earth, as a spaceship, which is what it is, we're on this incredible voyage around the Milky Way galaxy. It takes 250 million years to make one orbit of the galaxy, going at a terrific speed. And on this spaceship, there's a life support system. Like any life support system, if anybody's seen Star Trek or that, there's a life support system. And that life support system provides the oxygen that we breathe, the food that we eat, and regulates climate and temperature. And that mechanism is run by a crew, not us. Humans are passengers on Spaceship Earth. But what we are doing is we're killing off the crew. And without that crew, the machinery of the life support system will collapse. And who are the crew? The phytoplankton, the zooplankton, the fish, the worms, the trees, the bees. They are the crew that run this life support system. And every time we diminish that, you diminish our ability to survive. And if we remove any of these key species, then it will all collapse. A world without bees is not a world that you want to live in. A world without worms is not a healthy place to live. Now, a few years ago, I was on the Fox television network. I was attacked because I said that worms and trees and bees and plankton were more important than people. And they said, how can you say something so outrageous? You say worms, trees, and bees are more important than people. And I said, because worms and trees and bees are more important than people. It's as simple as that. Because they can live on this planet without us, but we cannot live here without them. We need them, they don't need us. So if we're going to survive as a species, we have to learn to live in harmony with all of these other species that are sharing this planet with us. We have to live in accordance to the 3 basic laws of ecology. The law of diversity. That the strength of an ecosystem is dependent upon diversity within it. The law of interdependence. That all of those species are interdependent with each other. We all need each other. And the law of finite resources. That there's a limit to growth, a limit to carrying capacity. And when we steal the carrying capacity from other species and they go extinct, it diminishes our ability to survive. And so this is what our approach is, to try and protect the diversity in our oceans. Sea Shepherd primarily focuses on going after illegal activities, and 40% of all the fish that is taken out of the ocean is being taken illegally, unreported, unregulated, and illegal fisheries. And that's what we've dedicated ourselves to stop. Just this last year alone, we've arrested 34 poachers off the east and the west coast of Africa. But more importantly, we're acting as a deterrent to these waters, to keep them out of those waters. And we're also acting to protect endangered species like the vaquita in the Sea of Cortez. There's only 17 to 20 of these porpoises left in the world. And the reason they're not extinct now is because for the last 5 years, we've been in there confiscating nets. It's a dangerous campaign. We've taken over 950 nets total. And we're also going down to areas, very remote areas of the world, and stopping poachers there. 2 years ago, we shut down all of the ice fish poachers in the Southern Ocean along the coast of Antarctica. Now, what are ice fish? It's sold in restaurants as Chilean sea bass. It's not from Chile, it's not a bass. It's a fish from the Southern Ocean. And for For 10 years, these boats were fishing these species illegally, and nobody did anything about it. So we went down there in 2015, and we found the most notorious poacher of them all, the Thunder, and we began to chase it. It dropped its nets and it ran, and that became the longest pursuit of a poacher in maritime history. The chase lasted 110 days from the coast of Antarctica to the west coast of Africa, equatorial Africa. And after 110 days, we ran them out of fuel. The captain of the Thunder sank his own ship right in front of us to destroy the evidence on board. But our crew boarded the sinking ship, got the evidence, and the officers and the captain were in prison for 3 years and were fined 17 million euros for what they did. But more importantly, we shut down all of those illegal whaling, or those illegal fishing vessels in Southern Ocean. And this year, I'm happy to report that the Japanese whaling fleet, if anybody saw us tackling them on whale wars, the Japanese whaling fleet is now permanently retreated from the Southern Ocean, and no more whales are being killed in the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary. More importantly, no whales are being killed in international waters. For the first time in the history of whaling, there is no whaling in international waters. All whaling now is restricted to the territorial waters of Japan, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland. And this summer, we shut down Iceland. Not a single whale was killed in Iceland while we were there. So that's what I set Sea Shepherd up to do, is to intervene. But also to empower people to understand this one thing, that each and every one of us has the ability to make a difference. We all have the ability to change the world. And all we have to do is harness our passion, courage, and imagination, and that will make a difference. To give you an idea, about a few years ago, I got a call from a man in Scotland, and he said, they're killing gray seals here in the Orkney Islands. What are you going to do about it? And I said, well, I'm on the west coast of North America right now, and you're in Scotland. What are you going to do about it? And he said, well, what can I do? So we helped them set up a group in Scotland, and they were very enthusiastic. They landed in the Orkney Islands, walked up to the sealers, literally pulled the rifles out of their hands and threw the rifles into the ocean, and then all got promptly arrested, which is great because we got so much publicity that we raised enough money to buy that island, which is now a seal sanctuary for great seals. And so one person here, to make a difference. So 90% of all of our crew on our 14 ships at sea are volunteers, and they come from right now alone. We have about 200 people from about 25 different countries around the world. And they come on board and they understand that they can make this difference, and they go back to their communities and get involved in many, many things. So it spreads out. Sea Shepherd's now in 42 different countries. And we're involved with trying to stop salmon farming off of British Columbia, Newfoundland, Tasmania, Iceland, and Faroe Islands, because that's a very polluting industry. Not only puts a lot of fecal material into the ocean, but also a lot of chemicals and hormones and growth hormones. One of the things that we have to address is the damage being done to oceanic ecosystems by the runoffs from all sorts of farms. It doesn't matter whether you're growing vegetables en masse or you're killing animals or farming fish. We slaughter 65 billion animals every year in the world. 65 billion. And that is the single greatest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, more so than the entire transportation industry put together. So that's why it's very important that we move towards adopting a vegan world where we're lowering our carbon footprint and at the same time becoming more compassionate because of that. And I see that coming, for many, many years ago. I mean, nobody knew what vegan was. And so it's now one of, I think, the fastest growing social movements in the history of the planet, and it is global. And that's a good thing, but it has to go a lot more further than that. Last week I was talking to Greta Thunberg about this, and she's adopted a vegan diet, and we're helping her to get over to the climate change conference over in Spain. It was just moved from Chile to Spain. But she's a good example of how one person can make a real difference. And a lot of times when people say, well, children really should wait and not get involved in activism because, well, they really don't know what's going on and everything. But here's something that I learned about a long time ago. Children know more about what's going on in the world than adults. And that's a fact. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to speak to a school in the Queen Charlotte Islands in British Columbia. And we started with kindergarten, spoke to middle school, and then we went to the seniors. And in kindergarten, the first question is, who here speaks the Haida Indian language? Every one of those kids spoke the language. Who here knows anything about Wales? We didn't have to say anything. We just listened to what they knew about Wales. By middle school, only half of them spoke the language, and only half of them were interested. By the time we got to the seniors, nobody spoke a word of Haida, and nobody really cared about Wales. So I said, what we did in this school system that we're in here is we've taken beautiful, intelligent children and turned them into people who don't really know or care about it. And that is not education. Education really is listening and understanding the intuition of children. You know, when I was a child, I got in trouble on 2 different occasions. One, I cut up the map of the world, and I put it together like a jigsaw puzzle. And the teacher said, what did you do that for? I said, I think that this is one continent, that it all broke apart. This was back in the 1950s, and she said, you don't know what you're talking about, that's absolutely stupid. Well, it turned out I was right. And then the other thing, I think that dinosaurs had feathers. They were birds. And the teacher said, you don't know what you're talking about. Turned out I was right. Why was I right? Not because I was smarter than the teacher, because it intuitively made sense that children have that ability to understand and know what is what and what isn't. And we have to listen to that. And that's why I think we're going to proceed into the future to protect this planet, that we really have to listen more and more to what children have to say. I get a lot of my best ideas from children. And, you know, I started doing what I was doing when I was 10 years old. I spent that summer swimming with a family of beavers in eastern Canada. And every day I went to swim just me and the beavers. And the next summer when I went back, I couldn't find the beavers. I began to ask questions, and I said, what happened to the beavers? And I found out that trappers had come in during the winter and took them all. And I got very angry. So at 11 years old, I would walk the trap lines, free the animals, and destroy the traps. And so that's what I've been doing my entire life. I've never had to make a career choice. I started by rescuing beavers, and now protecting everything from whales and sharks, sea turtles, seabirds, and all the creatures that are in the ocean. And this is something that we are finding that more and more is that individuals can make this kind of difference. Because of Diane Fossey, we still have mountain gorillas in Rwanda. Jane Goodall's contribution to protecting chimpanzees, Veruca Galdikas' contribution to protecting orangutans. One man in Bermuda named David Whitgate spent his entire life protecting one little bird that you've never heard of called the Bermuda storm petrel. Why that is important is because if it wasn't for David, Bermuda storm petrel would now be extinct. That's how one person can make a difference. And I can't think of anything more noble than the fact that because you lived, a species survived, or a habitat was protected. That is the most incredible legacy that any person can leave on this planet. And we're seeing more and more of that. So I have a lot of hope for the future in that respect. A lot of times people will say, well, you know, this is all hopeless. The problems are so overwhelming, it's impossible to solve. Back in 1973, I learned probably one of the most valuable lessons of my life because I was a medic with the American Indian Movement during the occupation of Wounded Knee in South Dakota. We were being shot at, we were surrounded, and I went to the leader of the American Indian Movement, Russell Means, and I said, we don't have any hope of winning here. Why are we here? And his answer has stayed with me the rest of my life. He says, we're not concerned about the odds against us. We're not concerned about winning the war. We're here because this is the right thing to do, the right place to do it, and the right time to do it. You worry about the present, and it will take care of the future. And if you want to solve an impossible problem, you simply have to find the impossible solution. And that is possible. In 1970, the very idea that Nelson Mandela would be president of South Africa was unthinkable and impossible. And yet, impossible became possible. And why? Because of his strength, his courage, and his imagination. And that is what makes the difference in changes things in the world. And this is what we're seeing more and more, especially amongst young people. And that's very, very, very encouraging. You know, and gives me certainly a lot of hope for the future. Sea Shepherd is very media oriented. That is, that we understand that we live in a media culture, and that if you want to make a difference, you have to understand that culture. That's why we have a lot of celebrities on our board. And I always sort of joke that, you know, because we have on our advisory board Christian Bale and William Shatner and Richard Dean Anderson, we have Pierce Brosnan, and we have Sean Connery and Christophe Lambert. How can we lose? We've got Batman, we've got Captain Kirk, we've got two James Bonds, we've got MacGyver, we've got the Highlander, so we can't lose. Anyway, that's the media perception of it. And one of the reasons people ask us, well, why do you use so many celebrities? Well, the reason we do it is because in a media culture, people listen to celebrities. So if I have to get a message across, I go to a celebrity. For example, 2 years ago, I had to get a speech to the Russian parliament and to President Putin on protecting whales in Siberia. Now, he's not going to listen to me, but I wrote the speech, and I simply had Pamela Anderson deliver it. They listened to her. And so we learned over the years that those are people who listen. We want to protect seals, we go to Richard Parnell, and on and on. And Pierce Brosnan has been very helpful. And of course, we always go back to our to getting a lot of support for the last 20 years from one of our biggest supporters, the former President of the United States, or people think he was former President of the United States, Martin Sheen. And so we try to cultivate that kind of approach. And that's one of the reasons that we have our TV show called Whale Wars, is because I went to all the TV networks and I said, look, the biggest show on Discovery right now is a bunch of guys going into some very remote and hostile and cold waters in the Bering Sea to catch crabs. I'll give you a show where men and women are going to a colder, more remote place to save whales. It has to be more compelling than catching crabs every week. And they went for it, so we had a 7-year program. And the reason that program is no longer on is because we won, and the Japanese whale fleet is no longer in the Southern Ocean. People often ask us, well, what about your flag? Why do you have a pirate flag? And the reason for that is about 25 years ago, people that we opposed began calling us pirates. I said, okay, if you want to call us pirates, we'll be pirates. And the best way to deal with that is just to accept it. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I designed that flag. And the black represents what we're doing to the planet and the species that we're driving toward extinction. The skull represents what it's humanity that's responsible. But in the forehead of the skull is the yin-yang of a dolphin and a whale. And what that represents is that harmony is to be found in the ocean. And underneath we have the shepherd's staff and trident, which represents what I call aggressive nonviolence. And in our 42 years of operations, we've never caused a single injury to a single person, nor have we sustained any injuries. But aggressive we have been. And we have shut down illegal operations all around the world by just getting in the face, doing things that we don't really expect. 2 years ago, we found the Chinese drip net fleet in the Indian Ocean, using nets which were illegal. We chased that fleet all the way back to China. As we approached the Chinese coast, there was 2 Chinese warships there. And the fishermen that we were chasing said, we're being pursued by pirates. And the Chinese Navy got on the radio with us and said, what's this all about? We said, well, we caught these guys in the Indian Ocean using illegal fishing gear. We've documented the whole thing, and that's why we're pursuing them. And the Chinese Navy said, bring them in. We brought them in. They were all arrested. The captains lost their licenses, and the companies were fined. If you get the evidence and the documentation, they can't argue. And that's why every Sea Shepherd ship has a film crew. The camera is the most powerful weapon that has ever been invented. You document everything, and you get that evidence out there, and that's what we do. And so the other thing that we did was we arrested 15 poaching vessels in Malaysia. They were held for quite a few months. We tracked other vessels into ports into Indonesia where they were arrested and destroyed, and shut down the Icelandic whaling fleet, cut their quotas completely to 0 for 17 years. And we've done all of this, and when people say, well, you know, isn't this illegal? No, not really. We're enforcing international law. That's why we've never been convicted of a felony. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to speak to the FBI in Quantico, the United States. And one of the agent said, well, you know, Sea Shepherd's walking a pretty fine line when it comes to the law. And I said, yes, but does it really matter how fine the line is as long as you don't actually cross the line? And the FBI said, well, I mean, that's true. We're not crossing the line. So what we've been now doing is we're acting responsibly, non-violently, and most importantly, effectively. So thank you very much, and the rest of the time, if anybody has any questions, I'll hear them. What? Yeah, well, unfortunately, a lot of them died because of road kill, and we have to, at every opportunity when we see that, we have to come to their rescue. Yeah. We go after illegal activity.
Well, yes, illegal. As long as it's illegal. Within the makes sense, because I kind of believe in a weird form. How much time to catch fish, and how much time to, without nets, not commercially, kind of, just regular bobber and sponge stuff.
You know, what you're saying, how do you catch fish? Or?
Usually just with us,
What's the question? Question.
Then do you guys find it, like, ethical to catch stuff with fishing rods, or?
Well, we don't. All Sea Shepherd ships are vegan ships, all of them. We don't serve any fish, meat, or dairy products on any of our fish because we feel that we have to set an example. 40% of the fish is being taken is illegal. Also, well, 40% of the fish taken out of the ocean, independent of that, is not eaten by people. It's fed to pigs and chickens and other animals like burger and alligator or salmon. In fact, we live in a world where chickens on factory farms now eat more fish than all the world's health processes and companies put together. And so it's something that we have to really deal with. A couple of years ago at the Climate Change Conference in Paris, on the Oceans Forum, I said, look, what we need is a 50-year moratorium on all commercial fishing. We have to shut it down. We have to allow the ocean time to repair the damage that we've done to it. And so we have to have that moratorium. You know, for hundreds and hundreds of years in Polynesia, the shaman amongst the Polynesian people, they would say, this area, this bay, is tapu, no fishing. If anybody was caught fishing, it was there. They took it very seriously. Why? Because the shaman knew that if the fish disappeared, the people would die. And therefore, it was very, very serious. Today, there are no tapu areas. There's no safe place for fishes. And all species of fishes are in decline. There's no sustainable fishery anywhere on the planet right now. And that's not just because of overfishing. It's because of pollution, chemical pollution, plastic pollution, agricultural runoff pollution, sonic pollution, radioactive pollution, all of this is causing these problems.
Questions? You stand up and talk loud.
All right. Yes. I figured out. It's like the pollution we were talking about. There's like there's an island that's bigger than Hawaii.
Yeah, you're talking about the plastic garbage in the ocean. Well, there are literally billions of tons of plastic in our ocean. You know, it's a bit misleading to look at it as this garbage patch that you can see because you can't really see it. Correctly, you can't really see it. It's the particle of and is constantly circulating in those currents, and it washes up the beaches. The amount of plastic in the ocean is very closely, or very rapidly, becoming more than there are fishes in the sea. And so it's a very, very serious problem.
Over here.
Stand up.
What's the difference between a poacher and a fisherman?
Well, a poacher is an illegal fishing. Somebody's catching fish illegally outside of the law. Now, what we're opposed to is illegal, unreported, and overfishing. Overfishing can be legal, but at the same time, it's causing incredible damage.
You were saying about the pollution. Another thing that's killing fish is red tide, because the bacteria that's opened up. I don't know why, but it opens up and it just gets all the air out of the water and kills the fish.
Well, red tide, of course, is caused by an overpopulation, dinoflagellus, which is caused by primarily agricultural runoff and the nutrients that are included to feed these dinoflagellus. Red tide used to be a very rare thing, and now it's very, very common. The cause of it, everybody knows what the cause of it is, but there's a lot of other politicians, especially, who are in denial of that. The problem that we have in this world is that people buy their way out of the crimes that they commit, primarily corporations and politicians that support them.
You protect other animals instead of just water animals.
Do I protect other animals aside from water? I used to, but I found I had to focus. I've been involved in protecting wolves in the north, and also elephants. I spent 6 months tracking elephant villages in East Africa. But I found that, you really have to focus. The ocean is a big enough thing. But there are plenty of other organizations that are focusing on various different issues like that. So the strength of an ecosystem is in diversity. The strength of any movement must be in diversity. So it doesn't matter what the approach of that organization is, whether it be education, litigation, legislation, or direct action. It all works towards the same objective.
When you first became an activist, were you scared to go out and talk to people about it?
No. Like I said, I started when I was 10 years old, and I got into some very fierce arguments. But no, I was never afraid to talk about it. There's really nothing to be afraid of. You shouldn't be intimidated by any criticisms, because if you're going to accomplish anything in this world, you're going to have to accept that people are going to be against you, they're going to criticize you, they're going to attack you. And the best defense on that is to simply ignore it and pursue your passions and to the best of your ability. Don't let anybody deter you.
So basically, you help the fish make sure they survive and wait for the population to increase, and then you go to a different species of fish.
Actually, what you're saying is what the fishing industry does, is they wipe out one species, move on to the next species, wipe out that, move on to the next species. That's what they're doing now. That's what they're trying to stop. Back in the 1990s, before most of you were born, there was a fish called the orange roughy. It was caught off in New Zealand. Everybody knew about it. It was in the fish markets. It's in Trader Joe's, everywhere else. It's not there anymore. Why? Because every fish is different. A salmon takes 4 years to become sexually mature and then dies. That's its life cycle. An orange roughy takes 45 years to become sexually mature and then dies at the year 200 or so. Some of these fish live to be a couple hundred years old. They simply cannot keep up with the rate of exploitation that we have against them. So we can't treat them all the same. And I think we'll just need to leave them all alone for a sustained period of time. There is no sustainable fishery in the world today. No.
Have you ever had to go back to some place before?
Do I have to what? Sorry.
Do you ever have to go back somewhere you've been before?
All the time. All the time.
What's it like doing what you do now? And also, do you support us just eating a limited amount of fish, or do you support us to like stop eating fish altogether?
Our position is to not eat any fish, anything from the ocean. Our position is to use plant-based food. I think that's the way we're going to be in the future. We simply cannot sustain a population of 8, 10, 12 billion people on this kind of meat-eating diet, fish-eating diet. There's too many of us and too few of them. So we have to adapt to finding a solution that's going to be good for the climate, good for the animals, good for us. And that's why I think the vegan diet.
And then he also asked,
One more question, sir? Oh, wait, oops. Sorry.
Logan, you also asked another question. You asked how do you like what you're doing, right? So how do you like what you're doing?
Well, I like what I do. I think what I find most enjoyable is the fact that so many people come to us and so many people get involved. And it's that Sea Shepherd, which was once an organization, is now a movement. And that has given me a lot of freedom and certainly a lot of joy to see so many people around the world doing this, and I don't have to do it by myself anymore. And that's been for some time. And that makes me quite happy.
So you guys believe in maybe a self-sustaining food system? I know you might not know what that is, but I know because I kind of created it myself. So basically how it works is this. The government will give you a tax, right? The tax will basically let you have your own farm if you pay the tax, right? The thing is that once you pay the tax, that you can have your own little miniature farm where you don't have to clear out too much land, and you can basically put a couple of things in it as long as it follows the regulations of what you can put in it.
Well, I think that you should pursue your ideas and push them if you believe in them, and see if anybody picks up on that. Those are all good ideas. First of all, I don't believe that taxes are going to solve anything. It's just another means of grabbing money. I've always looked at people are sheep and the government is the shepherds, and taxes are how the sheep are shorn. We're basically a profit raise for the money that they can spend on wars and social things. But those are all good ideas, and that's one of the things we try to encourage is people to come up with those ideas like you're doing, and just see if they can make them work. It's one thing to have the idea, but next to push it and make it work. And so I hope you do that.
What happens if there's like too many species in one population? What do you do about it? Like, do you just help them all in the same way, or do you just try to move some of them away and then come back to the others?
I think the solution is to find ways to restore to the natural ecosystem, or therefore natural predators. For instance, we have in Vermont, where I live, we have a problem with Lyme disease. What is Lyme disease caused by? Ticks. Where the ticks come from? Overpopulation of deer. What's the solution to that? Bring back the mountain lions. They'll take care of the problem. If we bring back bears, we bring back wolves, we bring back the natural system that held everything in place perfectly, then we will deal with the problem. But we're not, every time we interfere, every time humans interfere, we always make the problem worse. So, restoring the natural balance, I think, is the solution.
I have a question. How much fish do you save a year?
How many fish do we save a year?
Yeah.
There's no way to answer that. Literally, I would say it would be millions of pounds. It's really, fish are something that people don't really give a lot of thought to. We would never allow on land what we do in the sea. These drag nets and drag trawlers and long lines, that's like, go to the Serengeti Park in Tanzania and take a net 100 miles across, drag it across the savannah, catching everything in that net, but you only want a few of those species, so you take that and kill everything else. That is what the fishing industry does. It takes all of this. For every kilo of shrimp that they catch, they kill 22 kilos of something else, whether that be turtles or other fish or other marine life. It's an extremely wasteful industry. So when you eat, say, a pound of shrimp, you're actually eating 22 pounds of everything else. The other thing that we have a problem is that we 2.8 million tons of fish that is caught every year is fed to cats. Cats are not aquatic predators. If a cat ever met a yellowfin tuna, the tuna would eat the cat. So it's not a natural thing that feeds the cat. So when people say, oh, the seals are eating all our fish in the North Atlantic, the cats, our domestic cats are eating more fish than all the seals in the North Atlantic. So that might be a place to start. Start with give cats the food that they naturally eat. They don't eat tuna naturally. In fact, they don't eat like the water. So we have to again look at where we're causing these problems with our consumption, not just with what we do, but with the animals that we raise.
How do you get the jurisdiction to operate in international waters? How do you guys get your jurisdiction?
We work in national waters in cooperation with governments. So now, right now, we have partnerships with Mexico, Peru, Ecuador, Gabon, Namibia, Tanzania, Cape Verde, Sao Tome, Liberia, and Senegal. We have partnerships. So in their waters, we work with their authorities. They come on board with us. In international waters, outside of the territories of these countries, we operate under what's called the United Nations World Charter for Nature, that states that any individual, organization, government is authorized to uphold international conservation law. And we've had to test that law. I tested it in court in Canada because I was actually arrested in Canada for stopping drag trawling off the Grand Banks of Newfoundland. And my defense was the UN World Charter for Nature. And during the trial, Canada brought in a law professor from the University of Toronto to say that Canada didn't recognize the UN World Charter for Nature. And the judge said, did Canada sign this? And she said, yeah, Canada signs a lot of things. And he said, if Canada signs it, we'll take it into account. So the problem is we have lots of laws, rules, and regulations, but the governments that sign them don't take them seriously. They just go to these meetings, they sign these agreements, and that's the end of it. The problem with governments today is all talk and no action. This is one of the things Greta Thunberg is trying to get across. You guys talk a lot, you have meetings a lot, but you never actually do it. And so it's time to start doing things.
I have a question. So, do you guys just deal with like illegal activity, or do you also do like things like the oil spill? Like, do you guys clean that up, or what is?
We take actions against illegal activities, but we do beach cleanups all around the world. We're moving literally thousands of tons every year. We just took 40 tons of marine debris off of Cocos Island off of Costa Rica. We just cleaned up one of the most remote beaches in Australia, working with the Aboriginal community up there. And we gather microplastics wherever we can when we're at sea. We drag them. We're also dealing with pollution issues and that, but that we deal on a different level. We have a group called Sea Shepherd Legal that approaches this in the courts, and while we do what we do on the high seas. So Sea Shepherd Legal and Sea Shepherd. And so yeah, there's many approaches to this, and not just us. There's many other organizations that are working and addressing this also.
Any more questions?
Have you ever been to Haiti?
Have I ever? Yes, I've been to Haiti, yes, and the Dominican Republic. And, we have a project called Good Pirates of the Caribbean. And what we do is we help communities in the Caribbean. We started this with Hurricane Maria when we brought relief supplies to Dominica. And just this last week, we finished off our campaign in the Bahamas, where we were bringing relief supplies, rescuing people and animals. And also, just last week, set up a solar generating station on one of the remote islands in the Bahamas to help them recover from the effects of the hurricane. So we're very active all through the Caribbean.
Any more questions? Carl, is there any more back there? Any more questions? What about the adults? Any questions? question here. He wants to know if you catch whales or save whales. Is that correct?
We save the whales, we don't catch whales. Our campaign's down in the Southern Ocean. We saved 6,500 whales from being killed by Japanese whales. I'll finish off with one thing then, if more questions, and that is that we have to understand that we think we're the most intelligent species on the planet. But what is intelligence? We view intelligence as the ability to make tools, eye coordination. But intelligence comes on many levels, and I think intelligence is best defined by the ability to live in harmony with the ecosystem that we're within. Whales don't have hands, but they have brains far more complex and bigger than ours. And people say, well, they're big animals. Of course, they have big brains. Dinosaurs were big animals and had small brains. But the average size of a human brain is 700 cubic centimeters, but the average size of an orca is 6,000 cubic centimeters. The largest brain to ever evolve on this planet is a sperm whale with a brain of 9,000 cubic centimeters. And all mammals, from mice to people, have 3 lobes of the brain, except for cetaceans, dolphins, and whales, 4 lobes. And that 4th lobe is associated with behavior, dealing with communications, and thinking. So what we're dealing with is highly intelligent, highly social species that we don't understand. And because we don't understand them, that's why we're doing it. And someday I'm hoping that we will be able to communicate with them. My neighbor next door, Dr. Roger Payne, was the first person to actually report humpback whales. And scientists are working on the ability to use computers to actually understand the whale's language and hopefully one day speak with them and then speak with us. I don't know if we're going to be very happy with what they have to say to us, but I think that that's a possibility that one day we will be able to speak to whales and the dolphins. And by the way, dolphins call each other, they have names for each other. Just like we have names for everybody else, they have names for each other. We know that. And we also know that dolphins have learned to speak our language, that they've spoken English words and know the meaning to it. We haven't learned to speak one word of Dolphinese, so I sort of wonder who's the more